afternoon. My name is Magda Rodriguez, and I'm joined by my peers Abir, Andre, and Leslie, and we will be presenting on the Phoenix Art Museum and our visit and the implications with space. So I'm going to start by talking about museum curation, which is the art of displaying art. There's many things that go into museum curation. Some of the main things which are concerned with it logistically are things such as infrastructure of the building and securing it to ensure its stability, controlling humidity and temperature to ensure the well-being of the pieces in the museum, restoration, which is the intervention of damages to the piece, conservation, which is the constant vigilance of pieces and ensuring that they are in optimal conditions in order to thrive, and watertight and waterproof packaging and sensors for those pieces that do need them. And one of the interesting things about the Phoenix Art Museum specifically is the way it's laid out. So there are 4 floors. There's the lower level floor, which usually houses traveling pieces. The main floor, which is where your entrances will be at, there will be traveling pieces, as well as the Asia Art Gallery, the Score Gallery, and select European pieces. On the second floor, you have the Fashion Gallery, you have European art, American art, and Western American art. And on the third floor, you have more of the modern art pieces, as well as the photography section. Now I'm going to be passing it on to Leslie, who will be discussing her piece.
Hello, I'm Leslie, and this is going to be the piece I'll be talking about. The name of it is it's Thorn Miniature Rooms, and these rooms were built by Narcia Thorn. She began to collect some of these miniature furniture and objects while she was on a trip through England. Some of these rooms are actually replicas of existing rooms throughout the US and Europe, which is very cool if you ask me. But these particular pieces is going to be located on the upper level on the north wing, which is going to be right here. What's kind of interesting about where it's set up is it's kind of like in the corner. I don't want to say isolated, but it's more like to itself. And it's like a whole room. There's only one way in and one way out, unlike other paintings or sculptures where it's kind of free and not really closed off. I feel like the museum is trying to put you in the actual artwork itself. Makes you want to feel like you're in the rooms itself. To accomplish these feelings, the way the room is set up really does matter. You have multiple rooms surrounding the room itself. So just all around, you can see just tiny rooms. I feel like the way it's set up makes you want to feel like you're truly embraced in the actual rooms every time you take a look at it, without the distractions of other paintings or sculptures, to kind of distract you from the actual rooms inside the space. So now I'll be passing it on to Andre.
Hi there, I'm Andre, and I'm going to be talking about Japanese artist Yayoi Kusama's "Who You Are Getting Obliterated in the Dancing Swarm of Fireflies." Yes, that is a mouthful. So this piece of artwork is located on the 3rd floor of the building of the Phoenix Art Museum, which is in the very back, and it's placed with other pieces of contemporary artwork. As a tourist to this museum, you'd first have to get to this art piece. You'd first have to pass the Steel Gallery, pass the gift shop, pass the Chase Lobby and the Cummings Great Hall, then go up 2 flights of stairs or take an elevator, and then you'd have to walk all the way across the room to get to this piece of artwork, which sort of implies that this piece of artwork isn't necessarily as important as some other piece. It is interesting though that in the map, it is the only featured piece of contemporary art that visitors are expected to go travel and visit. Yet it's so far away and hard to get to, which has very interesting implications. So in terms of the layout of the third floor, on one section there's the photos, which is sort of blocked off from the rest of the contemporary art, and then in this room it's very open. It has a few sculptures in the middle and artwork all across the walls. Yet in the back part of the room, there is this specific room, which is this piece of artwork, and it has its own designation. And to fully immerse oneself into this piece of artwork, one has to actually walk in and experience it for themselves, because it's all based on space and light, as it is mirrors and streams of LED lights. And so in terms of superiority, to have one maybe as a flaneur just walk past other pieces of artwork and maybe look at it, take it in, and then move on, this piece has to be completely immersive, which isn't necessarily true for other pieces of artwork, which implies a little bit of superiority factor in the curation of this piece itself. And it is not only that, it's given its own designation of its own room, which other art pieces aren't given the same luxury. And now I'd like to pass it off to Abir.
Hello, I'm Abir Rahmani. The first thing, the museum, it shows different type of emotional representation, hope and youth. For example, the feminist canvas talk about emotions that color our representation of life. Asian tradition focus on the food hospitality, which was expressed through the art. The museum focus on the modern type of art. There was nothing that represented the Middle East, such as Babylon or Egyptian civilization. For American culture, there was a lot of focus of mental health and expression feelings. For the Asia culture read section, the focus was on the items that are used for cooking and drinking. For the Netherlands, the display relied on creativity, facial expression, and features. On this piece of art, it was Belgian, brought back some memories to my home country. This is the art like the Middle East. So in the Middle East, religions plays a huge part in our daily life, and we like to have one leader which presented in these pieces of art. All of them looking to the leader, toward one person. In addition, their body language was sadness and not happy. So the nice thing of this piece of art, you can interpret the piece in many different ways. The second one, the female is chasing the male. It is traditional way that female is following the desire, and his body language makes me feel he is more powerful than her. So she is the waker in this situation. He is not making any eye contact, so she is not on his focus. So I went to a museum was to see the Asian art and the American art, but I was amazed by the Oman part of the museum. So I ended up liking and focusing on this type of art. Thank you.
To conclude, we would like to address something that most people don't think of when they go to a museum, and that's that we're all tourists there. And that includes the people who work in the museum, the curators. And museums take the top-down approach with their art. All of the art that is brought to the museum isn't asked for by the people. It's brought by the experts, by the curators, and that gives us a limited perspective of what is art. Museums are facing the criticism that the representations of history are riddled with something we call something that Christina F. Krebs calls historical imbalances of power. So that's representing cultures which have been or are currently in power over other cultures. And to me, this relates how the native views their place versus how the tourist views their place in Kincaid's work as well as Said's work. There's the implication that some places are more important than others, and when these places are represented, such as the Sikh wing, there's not as much importance placed on these particular pieces. Rather, we're more drawn to the solitary Manet that's in the museum, or installations by modern artists. So, if anything, we'd like to say that the implications behind the usage of space in a museum show that countries with more power or more influence are represented more in these places than smaller countries. And here we have our Works Cited page. Thank you so much for listening to our presentation.